Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I knew that. Sorry, I got my book
Because
was
you
messed
totally
up.
read, right?
As
Yes,
we're
I know
live.
everything that's going on this week.
Oh,
We're just putting Chase on the spot, everyone. Happy Monday.
I'm a convict.
Oh my gosh.
You want to share that
Potentially.
story on live?
Yeah, I got pulled over. That's all y'all need to know.
We got
Oh.
a felon in our midst.
we bailed them out.
Well, welcome everyone. Happy Monday. We have no ballot news again. It's really depressing.
It's been weeks.
But we do have the end of Mockingjay, or close to the end of Mockingjay, and we have a special presentation from AJ later on. So
Oh my
that's
God.
exciting.
Ooh.
Stay tuned for that. But first, let's start with our Mockingjay chapters.
Oh, wait, I
Yay.
do want to say I'm excited for that actors on actors between Jen
Yeah.
and
Yes.
Viola. I think that's going to be cool. I mean, obviously nothing to say about it at this point, but I hope they talk even for 30 seconds about the Hunger Games. They have to, right?
They have
Yeah.
to.
Truly,
Yeah.
they did that on purpose.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean,
think they
it'd be
did.
cooler if it was after it came out, so they could actually talk about her performance or something. But
That'll be the
Jen
part
being
two.
like, "You suck."
They'll do
Right.
like the Billie Eilish Vanity Fair thing where they'll just do the same actors on actors like a year later. just
Oh yeah.
I'm a
compare notes.
bad guy.
Okay.
Duh.
Well, she is.
doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
You are, Chase.
Well, I am a convict.
Yeah.
I know I'm a convict. So
Also, really quick, Emily and I went to the exhibition last week.
Yay.
We did.
Ooh.
It was very fun.
That was really
Alright.
fun.
And
that did look cool.
we all missed you.
I
Oh, we
know. I
missed
wish
you all.
everybody could have been there.
Next year.
Squad.
Would y'all have
Yeah.
traded places so one of us could go?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I'd never been, so
This was my third time at the Vegas version, fourth time seeing the exhibition in general. I would gladly sub one of you guys in instead.
Oh, so kind.
You're welcome.
we spent a lot of time in the exhibition too. They were trying to rush us through, and I was like, "Excuse me,
Did
no."
you know who we are?
I didn't feel that way. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, I did.
What?
I was like, "No, I want to go back."
That was just that first part.
Well, I
It's like
guess
tour
just at the
guides?
beginning. Yeah.
It's just the first part, because the first part, for those
Yeah.
of you who don't know, I'm gonna put on my Caesar Flickerman voice. For those of you who don't know, Tracker Jackers, no I'm kidding. The first part, when you walk in, there's a couple costumes and a little screen where they do a little montage of the movies and stuff, and then there's a worker that guides you into the Capitol train and has a little speech and stuff. That's the only part you can't really walk back to after you've been there, because they try to usher in small groups of people at a time to give people space and I guess make it more fun or more personal for people. So that's really the only section you can't really go back to look at, which is a shame because there are some pretty iconic outfits or costumes.
But yeah, I was gonna say that's the stuff I wanted to see most though.
Yeah. But I mean,
seeing
we did
Katniss's cowl and jacket, seeing the reaping outfits for Effie and
Yeah.
Katniss, the Capitol
And for-
train part. That's the best stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
the stuff in the other room is cool, but it's not the most iconic stuff, I guess, except for the wedding dress, but I didn't really care that much about the wedding dress.
Yeah.
So
I
Amen.
agree. We did ask the employee if we could just quickly run back before the other group came in.
I was
and
like,
he did
excuse
let
me, sir.
us- He did let us.
I need to go back.
So to his credit, if you ask nicely and it's not super busy when you go, I feel like they'll let you do that. I don't know. I know when I went last year, I was asking all sorts of ridiculous questions and they tolerated me the entire time. So both days, because I went 2 days in a row. So
Not me
I feel
trying
like
to take a group on the tour myself.
exactly.
It just means that I need to go a couple more times, you know?
Right. By looks of it, I might be going back to Vegas in February, apparently. So, like, who knows?
Wow.
I know.
Like, I was like, you need a season pass. Honestly.
I do. That they should offer memberships. They should do something. I mean, the Instagram account follows me on Instagram. That should count for something. Like, they should give me something. Victory
Right.
Hill Entertainment, if you're listening.
My TikTok alone should have got me free entry. Free entry next time,
Yeah.
please.
Absolutely. Anyway.
What was your favorite thing that you saw, Emily?
I like the train section. I mean, you know, my chairs are there. And it looks so much
Our
like
chairs.
the train. Yeah.
Thank
There's
you.
like 2, right? So we can share.
Yeah.
And then the cool like section in the back with the seat. It's like the train that you can sit at.
Yeah.
I like that
Cute.
part.
It was pretty fun. I have to say, I'm really proud of Emily because when we came up to my favorite dress, the Katniss engagement party, or like Snow's mansion party dress with the shoulder pads, she did say that while it's still not her favorite dress, she could admire the craftsmanship of it, and like seeing it in person gave you a new perspective on it, right?
It did. It was cool to see in person. It's
Okay.
still not my favorite Katniss look, but like
That's fine.
I get why it's
That's a
cool.
dress. Right. Yeah. So that was exciting for me. Justice for my dress.
But yeah, it was fun. I mean, the most fun thing, like it was cool to see the Capital Train section, but I did have a lot of fun with the archery part. That was even more
That
fun than I
looks-
thought it was gonna be.
That looked so cool.
It was fun. I want to do that
Do
again.
they have a lot of the weapons there?
What?
Do they have a lot of the weapons there from the games?
No,
I don't think they had anything.
no,
you
that
serious?
those were sold, I think, at auction when the
Mhm.
exhibition transitioned from traveling to permanent. And that's why I keep saying like the Vegas exhibition is so much smaller. Like if you were able to see it when it was traveling, it was massive. And then the one in Vegas is a lot smaller. Oh, that reminds me, we did ask if they were planning on absorbing Ballad once that comes out.
Oh, you did?
I did, yeah, when I was paying for my pins. I asked and she couldn't really give me a straight answer. So to be fair, she may not know for sure like what the plan is, or she might know and might not be able to say something, you know. So take this with a grain of salt. She said that her phrasing was kind of odd, which is what makes me kind of go, huh? She said that they plan on absorbing some of it if they're allowed to, which I thought was a weird way of saying that, or I don't really know what that means. I don't know, like, I'm sure there's some type of contract that happens between Lionsgate and Victory Hill Entertainment and stuff, you know, like I don't really know how that works. But at least she knew what Ballad was, which I thought was a victory because, you know.
I would hope so, working at the exhibition, but
you know, like I asked
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Last year when I went, I asked them some questions about some of the costumes and they were like, I'm sorry, I don't know that. And then I'm like, okay, well, all right. Why do I feel like I know more about these costumes than you do and you work here? But yeah, so that was kind of what she had said, that they were planning on or hoping to absorb some of the stuff if they were allowed to. I'm not really sure what that means, but at least it seems like some type of conversation has happened and will happen as the movie comes out and stuff. So that's exciting.
Interesting.
Yeah, I hope that you know, if they don't get, so when I was thinking about it a little bit more afterwards, you know, I don't think they're going to do a traveling exhibition again because I don't think Ballad would be big enough for people to actually go to that. I mean, maybe, but like I doubt that. So I feel like it'll be a mix of like straight to auction and then maybe some pieces sent to the exhibition, but I don't know like to what capacity or what costumes. Like, will the most iconic outfits be sold at auction or will those be reserved for the exhibition? I don't know.
Fun. Very exciting.
Who ordered this pig?
I'm just in shock. I'm just thinking about what's gonna happen to all the ballad costumes.
I'm just so jealous. I
too.
wish I would have been able to go.
Gabby, if there's the next time I'm in Vegas that I know for sure, I'll just tell you.
Okay.
And then we'll come up with the same plan that we did.
All right.
with-
Watch
And
me
that's an
come
open
again.
invitation. What happened?
Round two.
Yep.
Yeah, but Gabby, don't you have Ripley's Believe It or Not or whatever? So that's kind of the same.
Oh my god, get out of here, Chase.
Or is that
We have one of those in Times Square.
wait, is that Chattanooga or is that where's that? Gatlinburg? You're not Gatlinburg. Never mind.
No, it's pretty close though.
Oh, okay. But yeah, you got Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Not the same.
Yeah.
Well, Mockingjay.
It starts out interesting.
Yeah. This chapter's
Chapter
good.
25. Yeah. It's shorter than a lot of the other ones. I felt
Mhm.
like. But we start out with real or not real because Katniss is literally being burned alive.
Sorry, your delivery.
It's very
I
matter
thought-
of fact, just like, Katniss's narration. So
mhm.
Yeah. We start off with real or not real because Katniss is literally being burned alive.
It was. I thought this part was kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah. It's a lot
Oh,
of
really?
it's like different imagery.
I love that
She's
part.
like
I
out of
hate
it.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is some of her best writing.
Really?
I
I thought
agree.
it was a little.
Yeah.
I thought it was
Too, though.
trying too hard.
What?
No, I think this is when she shines right here.
Yes.
Agreed. I'm
Really?
with you. I
Okay.
agree.
Why do we think she shines right here? I'm just curious. Because like
It's
for me, it was just kind of weird. I don't know. It felt like trying too hard to grasp at like all these. I don't know. It just felt kind of weird.
I
Out
kind
of
of
place.
love how
Poetic.
she's talking about being like the bird, like the mockingjay, and just her burning. It just reminds me so much of like the visual of the posters.
Mm.
Like
Oh
that's what
yeah.
Katniss is, but it's like not this really cool iconic thing. It's like awful. She's like dying.
She's like a roasted chicken.
Oh my god.
you sound more and more like Katniss. Jeez.
Holly's gonna go into some really like delicious description of chicken and she's gonna be talking about Katniss' chicken.
Yeah, literally. But it makes me sad because she realizes like she's reflecting on the fact that she has no sister now. So
Yeah,
that's
I think
really
that's
sad.
one of the best lines of the entire trilogy. Where she says, "I'm just a badly marked girl with no sister, no wings," or whatever that line is. I think it's one of the best
Ugh.
pieces of writing she has in the entire trilogy.
So good.
Because that's what she's been all about this whole
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, it's like the rug just got ripped out onto you, and it's like official. Like this is it. The entire story just got flipped upside down.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Like, what do you do now? What's the purpose for anything now? You know,
Right.
the one
on
thing you
pa-
were trying to avoid happened.
On page 349, it says dead but not allowed to die, alive but as good as dead.
Mm.
I love that. Just like
It's
that
so-
turn of phrase.
Yes.
So good. There's a couple of different lines in like this chapter and the next that I underlined like that are just so well written.
Hmm. But it really does describe that feeling of getting the rug pulled out. It's like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like this symbolism. Like, I'm not exactly sure what it means here, though. She's talking about the ones that she hates, like the dead are like coming back to her. The ones that she hates are like pulling her down. She's like at the edge of like floating like on the water. And the ones that she loves are like birds in the sky, like wanting her to like rise into the sky. I'm kind of like, what does this symbolize? Because I feel like it could be a couple of different things. Like, it could be like her mental state of like hope or despair, or it could be like more of a spiritual, like heaven hell type thing, or it could just be like her physical state. Like, is she gonna move into life or like move into death? I don't know though.
Ooh, that's good. I mean, it could be all three. I also think it has something to do with her inner psyche and how she sees herself. Like, in the pages before, she talks about how like she failed to like fly, like finally my wings begin to falter, I lose height, gravity pulls me into a foamy sea, the color Phoenix eyes. Like, she fails to be like Prim, be like these others that she holds in high esteem. And then how she views herself, which is very negative and kind of dark, is with like she's on the surface and she's kind of going down a little bit, so it's like this inner tension that she's had throughout the entire series. We see it in that little bit.
I like that because she has been talking about a lot of like how much she dislikes herself recently.
I just need all of your notes, Gabby.
Boy, my book is like marked up, so I can send some to you.
And then she talks about how she becomes a mental Avox, which that's the part that I find really interesting and really, really sad. It's how she can't like speak at all, just because of all the trauma that she has.
Yeah, I like that Suzanne included that because it's a very real thing that happens as a result of trauma. Like, not just the physical pain, but the mental pain. And like, that's the result of it, is essentially, being a mental Avox.
Yeah. I also thought it was weird that they were staying in the president's mansion as like their place of refuge during this time. I don't know, like, who else is assigned to live in the mansion? Like, it's her and her mom. Like, are all the victors in a room? I thought that was really interesting.
It's almost like it's just a hub for everybody at this point until they figure out what to do next, right? So kind of like everybody who might be needed is there.
Just, I don't know. I just thought that was weird. And then Dr. A, I don't know how to pronounce that name.
Dr. A
shows up.
Aurelius.
You get snack time. I don't know. I feel like this chapter is a lot of her dealing. It's like not really stuff to talk about. It's more so just her dealing with this in-between period of losing her sister.
She talks about her skin a lot and like the grafting, and I don't know, some lines I underlined it, draping my rawness in new sheets of skin.
Oof.
Her skin being like a bizarre patchwork quilt.
It had to have been like so painful. My mom used to work at a hospital, and she said that the one unit that she could never go in was the burn unit because of how painful it was for the victims. She just like couldn't handle it. So I
Mm,
cannot imagine having that happen.
yeah.
Like people can't even visit her until she can like have a single sheet over her. Like it's so bad.
Oof.
And then I feel bad because she goes to Haymitch because like that's the first person that she chooses to speak or is able to speak to. And he doesn't help her at all here. And I think that's really frustrating because this is a point like I feel like she only goes to him a certain amount of times. And this is one of those few instances where she like needs him and he's not there for her.
Yeah, that's really sad.
I hate this line how Katniss says like how she watched her sister become a Human Torch.
Mhm.
I was just looking at that.
No, thank you.
Oof, man.
And then she has like this ongoing, like in these 2 chapters. Well, I guess that's later, but in these 2 chapters, questioning whose fault it was.
Mhm.
It's more so later on, but I mean I think that would be the most frustrating part, especially once we'll get to it, but talking to Snow and like wanting to put that blame on the Capitol, but also like thinking about how close it was to the war ending. And she was just about to get away, and then that was like the last bomb that went off.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody's like abandoned her
It breaks my
too.
heart. Where is
Like
Gale?
Gale's gone. He took 2 bullets apparently.
Oh, boo-hoo.
He's mopping up peacekeepers too. Like her mom's gone.
I think I just get so upset with her mom just because it's like, I can't understand losing your husband and losing your daughter. But at the same time, you still have a daughter there. You have another person who needs you in this moment. And she just isn't able to give that.
I just think her mom is just like too. She's not healed in any aspect. Like even
Yeah.
before,
Mhm. I
like
feel
just
like
from the last-
she was barely starting like to get
Right.
there though.
like seeing like okay, like with the rebellion and whatnot, gave her like a purpose, almost like a something to hold on to, and then you lose your one of your daughters and your youngest one at that. It's kind of like, well, what's the point now? But it's not even like it's not a conscious choice or like a conscious thought of like, well, what now? It's just like you're just so defeated. My therapist made me familiar with the term trauma fatigued, where it's like just been
Yeah.
through so much that you just reach like a saturation point and you just like can't like take anything else on, and she just shuts down completely. And it's definitely frustrating, and it's not, right or fair or what Katniss needs or anything. But I feel like, I don't know, when I was a kid, I didn't understand her mom like at all. But then as I've gotten older and experienced some of my own things, I'm kind of like, I don't necessarily relate to it, but I get it. Like I understand how a person shuts down. Like I understand how that happens. You just get so saturated with pain that you just can't take any more in, and you're just there,
Yeah, it's definitely like a coping mechanism, and I like how well Suzanne describes the different ways and how like each character copes. Because take Haymitch, for example, like he copes in a very different way than Katniss's mother does, but they're both equally like experiencing some type of this trauma fatigue. Yeah. But yeah, that's, and then but at the end of the day, they both aren't able to be there for Katniss though.
Yeah. And she's only 17.
She's only 17. Yeah.
I think I don't know what part it is, so if I'm skipping ahead, we'll come back. But the part where they talk about, I think it might have been Snow that said it. Them putting Prim's death and all those kids' death on television. It's like its own Hunger Games with the parachutes in
yeah.
there. I
Oof.
forgot I forgot that part, and I forgot that it was actually like aired on television. And so
Yeah.
then it made me think like, oh, this is definitely not Capital. This is Plutarch and the people back in 13.
Especially like later on when there's like the decision to have another Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Like that just kind of confirms it even more so.
Mm-hmm. But that part was, I think, one of the most disturbing things from these chapters, in my opinion.
I feel like something that hit me reading this again when she's talking to Snow, that's like a little bit different than the movie, is that it's more pinned on like a team effort between Coin and Plutarch.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the movie scene, like they change like he to she in the movie, because he says, I'm sure he wasn't gunning for your sister, but these things happen. And it's
Yeah.
changed to she in the movie. And he specifically talks about Plutarch. Like you can see Plutarch's hand there and in the parachutes. Well, it's that sort of thinking that you look for in a head game maker, isn't it? Whereas it's like it's not Plutarch at all in the movie. That's just kind of like his role is downplayed in it. But I don't know if it's like him, if it really is Coin and just like Plutarch's influence like has brought that side out of Coin, or if it's just like, because Snow doesn't really know.
Or it could just be the system itself. Like that's what it produces. It's like this type of thinking, this type of desensitization towards like human beings. And this is the result of it.
Yeah, I feel like in the same way that I've said this before, how like, you know, we all know how Chase feels about Cressida, but you know, like she joins the rebel cause and she does what she can, but she's still ultimately from the capital and she has her perspective and she's limited in what she can do. In that way, I feel like the same concept applies to Plutarch in the sense of like, yeah, you know, he defected to 13 and the rebellion and stuff, but he was still a game maker in the capital. He still had to, and he had to clearly be like get to a certain status to be able to do that, because being a game maker in the capital is like, you know, this very high placed position. It's not, you know, the same as like, I don't know, being a postman, you know what I mean? Like no shake.
Right.
I'm just saying like, it's just like, it's something that you have to really work towards and you have to really want, I feel like, to get there. And so as much as, you know, you can use your strengths for good, you can use them for bad. And then in a context of war, it's like, well, what is good and what is bad? I feel like in the book, Plutarch is definitely more, well, he's definitely just more present in general, but like, and not even necessarily literally, but just you can feel his influence in the story a lot more. And yeah, like the game maker way of thinking, the game maker mentality is so much more present there. And I feel like, yeah, in the movie they condensed it to Coin because of time and simplicity and stuff, but like, yeah, when you read it, you kind of forget Plutarch has way more of a hand in stuff than we tend to remember. Yeah.
13 is alive and well, and so am I.
That's right.
I'm at the end of the chapter, so
Yeah, I wanted to read off one of my favorite parts of this conversation between Snow and Katniss. So it's at the end of page 357. After all, it was 13 that started the rebellion that led to the Dark Days, and then abandoned the rest of the districts when the tide turned against it. but I wasn't watching Coin. I was watching you, Mockingjay, and you were watching me. I'm afraid we have both been played for fools.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hot
good.
dang. Mm.
So good.
Epic.
hmm And the last line of the chapter, I thought we had agreed not to lie to each other, just like Dr. Gall in Ballad.
True.
Yep.
Telling that to telling that to Choreo.
hmm Yeah, that's where Snow gets his like affinity thing for not lying, right? I mean,
hmm
Yeah.
I hope that plays out well in the movie. Like, I hope they include that to tie that together.
mhm. I feel like it's one of the few things that they could tie to the original films with that was also included in the films and
hmm
in Catching Fire and in Mockingjay. Yeah, I feel like there's a good chance for that.
In the 2 hours and 40-ish minutes.
Yep.
Hopefully they can find a spot for it. Anybody have any thoughts at the beginning of 26? I don't have any notes for a while.
I just think it's interesting how she goes back and forth. Like she's trying to say, like, wait, this is the capital. She's just trying to fool me. And then she asks them what's nagging at me. And then she argues that it's clear that it wasn't the capital that killed or did that attack. It's almost
Yeah.
like she's trying to just like work it out for us, our little elementary school brains when we first read this.
And I still didn't get it.
I know, I was like, yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, that's why she wrote Ballad, so spelling it out for us again.
Mockingjay was a lot for me the first time. around.
Yes.
I've talked about this before, but it really wasn't until the movies came out that I was like, oh, and I was also a few years older for sure. And I was like, okay, now
Mhm.
everything makes sense. Now I understand. But yeah, it was rough.
And even like rereading it in preparation for Ballad coming out, like
Mm-hmm.
you're like 4 or 5 years older or however, and you even pick up on more stuff like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
And then Effie's alive.
Woo!
Yay! Woohoo! Party!
How?
Somebody's alive.
In the series.
Chase loves it.
I cannot stand this part.
Why?
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's a pretty weak writing moment, I feel
Maybe
like.
they just really hit her well. I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah, to not have any explanation at all. She just pops back in, saying her same lines.
Yeah.
So
Like
like,
a
it's
Uh.
cartoon
like
character that just spawns out of nowhere. You know what it reminds me of? Effie reminds me of like an incarnation of like when Bugs Bunny pulls out a random object behind his back. You know, like he's not carrying a bag, he doesn't have clothes, so he's not wearing pockets, and yet somehow he just has, you know, like a shovel on him or something. Effie just gives me that vibe, like that energy, just like here I am.
Like
Maybe she took off all her makeup and stuff and they couldn't even find her. Like they couldn't tell who she was.
Facial recognition.
Maybe that's how she hid.
I feel like that's possible. Hiding in plain sight is a thing. And like, not to go on a tangent here, but have you ever watched those, like, I forget her name, but she was like the former head of the CIA, and she does this like YouTube video about like rating characters in movies, like changing their appearance or like taking up like an undercover appearance or whatever, and she kind of like tells you like what's effective and not effective. And like the
Oh
biggest,
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And they were saying like the most effective thing to, or like the biggest thing to do is to change the overall shape of your silhouette. So like if you have short hair, throw a wig on that's like really long, or like, really loud colors, or like just drastically change the shape of your silhouette. That's the best way to hide in a crowd or something. And Effie, I mean, everyone in the Capitol especially knows her as, with the wigs and the dresses and the makeup and all the other things. If she showed up like a natural beauty queen, no one's gonna see her.
Mm,
That's true.
it's probably how she survived.
I mean, that's what she knows is fashion. It makes sense that that's what she would use to her advantage also, maybe.
Here's my favorite Gail bashing moment.
It's
Is
like, and then there's a tap at the door, and it's Gail.
I just have to talk about it right away. Like, I've just been sitting on this for a minute. The fact that he doesn't come to see her in the hospital.
Oh my god.
Oh,
And he
The
gives-
worst infraction.
He gives the weakest excuse too.
he doesn't even. It's not an excuse.
He doesn't answer.
He's a coward. Yeah. This is always like, because I respect their relationship and their friendship at the beginning of the series. But it's so sad when she on page 366 describes like what would have happened between them if she wasn't raped, and talking about like their friendship and who they were as kids, and he just doesn't show up for her. Like, that's the least you can do. It's just he's being a
Yeah.
coward because he's scared of how she'll react to the bombs that essentially killed her sister. That are
It's
his
sad that
fault.
she's like trying
It's
so
the
hard
truth.
in that moment to like figure out if like it's how horrible the world is. Like that's push them
Yeah.
apart, or if they just aren't like meant to be anything
Mhm.
to each other.
And that makes me sad about just like friendships in general, because I mean, that's life. Like, sometimes you'll have a really
Yeah.
close friend growing up and then you just go separate ways. And that's just how life was meant to be.
Yeah, it's realistic, unfortunately, but it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
One day that could be us.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Maybe we'll never talk to each other ever again.
Dang, that's great.
That's rude.
I have my friend Adrian, who she said she wasn't able to listen in tonight. Oh my god, sirens in New York are gonna kill me.
Chase her after you.
Concrete jungles where
They're after
dreams are
Chase.
made.
But shout out Adrian if you listen to the recorded version. But she and I became friends last year, I think it was, and we were like talking about the Stranger Things experience that was gonna open this year. And she was like, if we're still friends next year, do you want to go?
Aww.
I've never let her live it down because I thought it's just the funniest thing ever when you just become friends with someone to say that, because I also relate to it so much, because I'm like, I'm really excited about this friendship, but I don't know what you're feeling. So just in case, here's a disclaimer. And yeah, sorry, that was a tangent, but that just reminded me.
Hey, we didn't know we were making memories. We just knew we were having fun.
Oh my god.
We got this for years.
Hey,
Gail be
Kelly's
like,
favorite
"Hey,
quote in the world.
if we're still friends after all this, like war and stuff, I'll like hang out."
Oh, and then we get the victors voting together. And
Dun, dun.
a special someone, I saw the name Anabaria and I was like, oh. Which
Yeah.
I'm excited for your presentation, because the line on 369 where Anabaria says, let them have a taste of their own medicine, I was like, this is just
that's-
me
the-
pre-gaming for AJ's presentation.
That's the centerpiece. That's the coup de grace. Like that's the everything. And trust me, I intend on fully dissecting that. I recommend y'all just get all of your thoughts for the rest of the chapter out, because I'm just gonna go off.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, I got one thing to bring up before. How Coin, she's even more cold than the movie. I mean, I know we've talked about this, but her line where she's like, In fact, many are calling for a complete annihilation of those who held capital citizenship. However, in the
Yes.
interest of
Yeah.
maintaining a sustainable population, we cannot afford
Genocide.
this.
Yeah.
It's like almost
because
it
of that.
sounds like
Just as bad as
she would-
Gail.
like
Just
she
as bad
would
as
be
Gail.
down to get rid of them all too, but she's like, yeah, but you know, we need a population that's sizable. Like I need people to rule, so you know, we can't kill
That's
them
a
all.
crack ship for you.
Sounds like snow.
Mm,
Jeez.
sure does.
But that's the only limit. If it wasn't for that, you can just kill them all.
Right.
Yeah, I always forget about that too. I mean, I'm just the least familiar with Mockingjay, both the book and the movies. And so rereading it is always like a trip because I just forget 80% of it. But yeah, that is just, and it's so like kind of interesting too because we need it for like the sustainable population thing is still very much like the District 13 survival soldier strategy mentality, and not even just as like a human decency thing. Like it's just
Mhm.
purely just like animals. It's no different, you know.
Yeah. Oof.
And
There you go.
Coin and Gale are besties. That's the
Mhm.
They
crack
really
ship
are.
for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, agreed, Emily.
She looks great in the scene in the movie though. I love the chopped
That's true.
hair and the
So-
outfit. It's so sleek. Like I wanna
She's ready.
I wanna
to
wear
roll.
that. I wanna be that.
Stop.
I'm gay. I'm gay.
And then they all decide to vote for a game, and then she kills Coin.
That paragraph
That's-
though,
That happens.
Mm-hmm.
when Katniss is like, was it like this then 75 years ago? And but I'm like,
Yeah.
it is a little ruined for me with Ballad. Like it's a little
What?
bit.
You think that's
No.
Yeah,
ruined?
it's one of the worst
Yeah.
explanations ever.
Yeah, I mean the did
It's a
someone make a
homework
case for
assignment.
mercy? I'm like, okay, Sejanus, like, yeah. I mean, it's not the exact moment. Like, obviously, it just makes me think about the fact that it was like a dumb homework assignment,
No,
Yeah.
see,
Love that.
which I get, but also
I think of not even the kids, but oh my gosh, why am I blanking on their names? Snow's dad and the
Crassus?
professor. Yeah,
Highbottom?
like yes, thank you. It makes me think of that conversation. Like that
Mhm.
I connect with like the dissent and like the back and forth, not even the homework assignment.
For me, it doesn't bother me because for one, this is Katniss. She doesn't know the history, you know? So it makes sense for her to wonder about it. And then I feel like it does line up or it feels fine. I personally liked that it was a homework assignment because it just really points out how avoidable and useless and like on a whim, I guess it all was. And it just speaks to like the whole like, you know, actions have consequences thing and like the butterfly effect or whatever you want to call it. I love that it was just this stupid small thing that completely changed like the course of history for Panem. And it just like it adds to the tragedy of it all, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but it's an interesting thing to me.
Yeah.
The same thing happened with the with Snow and the betting that came out of like someone just said it in class and then boom, it happened.
Right.
Mhm.
That's on a smaller scale, but
which I also
Still.
think is kind of silly. But
Well,
All right. Well,
okay.
but you know
Well-
me though, Emily, I'm like forever in the optimist camp. I'm like,
Right?
yes,
I guess
love
it
the
just takes away my my
Oh.
initial imagination, I guess, of
okay.
Mm,
the
Mhm.
past,
Sure.
which
That's fair.
I just imagined like Katniss is thinking about it, and I was imagining something so like similar, like parallel, like happening back in the day, which I'm sure it did because like
It
they
does-
had to have voted on it, or like there had to be
Yeah, in the dark
some sort
days.
of meeting like afterward. It's not like it happened right after the idea was, come up with.
We're doing this
But-
immediately.
But yeah, then it takes me out of that moment, that parallel moment of the past, and to like just the homework assignment. I don't
Well,
I don't
would've-
like it.
I think the point maybe Suzanne was trying to make, and like it being kind of that clear connection, is the line that Katniss says on 370, nothing has changed, nothing will ever change now. Like that's kind of the whole point. Like it's not different than just as it isn't different now. They're still rehashing this same conversation. And like
Mhm.
that's kind of the state of humanity that
Mhm.
we're kind of in, unless someone, remembers who the enemy is, and you know. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I understand it. I guess it's just like I don't want to be thinking about Ballad like in this exact moment. Like I don't know. I want to be with Katniss and
But she-
I see.
But she doesn't know the history. She's just wondering. And I know as the reader we have more information now, but I feel like I don't know, it doesn't have to, maybe. Go ahead, Chase.
I agree with you, Emily, and I think she missed the boat by not going a little bit further into like how it was implemented. Like if she had said, okay, it was a homework assignment, but then it got brought up before like a committee and it was national news. Like I think that she could, if she had elaborated on it more, I would accept it a little bit easier. But I do think it's a little juvenile for what happens.
We don't really
Like
know
if she would have made
exactly
that
what
parallel
happened
in the last
afterwards.
book,
So
like okay, it went before committee and people fought over it. And I think she missed the boat on that.
right.
But
I
that's
agree with
Suzanne,
that, Chase.
never elaborating on much
That's fair.
as far as backstory of the government and stuff.
that could have happened, but we just don't know about that yet.
That's right.
Right. But like that's what
Yes.
I like to imagine and like to think about. But because Ballad exists, then I'm just thinking about the events of Ballad. I
Right.
don't know.
We need like
Like a
30
loose leaf paper being sent in. Yeah.
we need like a 30 to 50-year-old Snow book. Like we need like the middle part. Because we get the end of his life and we get the origin story, but there's a ton of stuff that happens in between, aka Tigress also. And like his rise to power, like we see how that gets set in motion, but we don't see it actually happen. Which when I was reading Ballad, I remember thinking like, we're nearly at the end of this book. How are we going to see like his rise to to being president, unless he became president at 18, which I don't think is happening either. And then, the book ends and that's not what the book is about, or it doesn't go into that. I'm like, damn, there's still like a whole lot of information that we're not privy to at this current time.
That's exactly my thought too. Like after reading the book the first time, that's why I was so disappointed in it. But then I read Ballad for what it was, and that's why I grew to love it. Because I was expecting more, but I didn't get that. But I still like Ballad, or I grew to love Ballad.
Yeah.
I like
Same.
that.
But that's why I feel like we're not getting anything else because so much is crammed into that epilogue.
Mhm.
It happens like so quick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just me.
But I'm just over here in the optimist camp always.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with AJ on this one.
I'm like, I'm not saying it's for sure gonna happen, but I'm saying it's not never gonna happen.
I don't know what
30.
mindset is better.
This is my last plug for loving PETA. No, burst out PETA. I vote no, of course. We can't have another Hunger Games. Come on. Best character.
I also wonder, like, I know he was going through a lot, but I wonder where he was.
What?
Like, no, like where he was post her, like in the hospital, and like I know he was like
He was in the
going through
hospital
his-
too.
I know, but he never came to see her, and I felt like he wasn't like out of his hijacked state enough, like not completely, but to a good like a enough point to like question what she was doing, and he didn't even go see her.
Maybe they weren't letting him run around the
Mhm.
mansion like Katniss was.
Mm.
Also, I mean, Prim was sort of like somehow a safe person in terms of Peta's recovery. Her being dead could maybe not be great for that, like set him off in some way, or just be,
Yeah, no.
Mm,
you know,
I know it's
Like,
like a
if he
question
was-
we'll
he
never
killed
know,
her,
but
like some
I know it's something that we'll never know, and it's not like a big
Right.
detail or anything, but like no one came to see her in the end, not even my PETA.
oh,
damn.
So that
But
kind of
if the
hurt.
But
movie-
I feel like maybe he just couldn't,
redeemed
but-
himself.
If the movie
Yeah.
scenes are right and he was in the mansion at some points, they may not have wanted to like try and set him off. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
if he had to go back there, like if he was tortured in any
Oh,
way
yeah.
in the mansion, like that would be
Oh, that's a
horrible to
good-
have to go back in there.
that's
but
a
they still
very
had the
good
meeting in
point.
there, so he had to go back
True.
sometime.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. But even if like let's say he could and he chose not to, at the end of the day, he redeemed himself. Meaning like we make mistakes, people can make the wrong choice, but it's your next step that matters, you know?
Mhm. And Peta has
Boom.
done that already. Like historically, his character has taken responsibility for himself.
That's
So,
right.
already in his nature to do that.
Hmm.
Period.
If
Yep.
Katniss asked him where he was at, he wouldn't have just said nothing.
Facts.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well,
Does everybody
Cool,
have their
guys.
thoughts in?
We're
Try-
ready.
I'm double checking to make sure I don't have
I'm like
anything
boiling
else.
right now.
Yeah, iconic. President Coin collapses over the side of the balcony and plunges to the ground. Iconic. Okay,
Best scene.
I think that's all I
Great.
got. Yeah.
A classic Suzanne Collins end of chapter ending too.
Hmm.
Dead.
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 It's a good
Period.
DED dead.
Just in case you didn't know, like got
She
shot,
did.
fell from the balcony. Oh yeah.
I feel like we gotta like tier rank these chapter endings.
Oh, that's great.
Ooh.
That would be fun.
We should
Yeah.
do that.
The week
Like,
after.
what's the S tier?
Yeah.
Oh
God,
yes, please.
yes.
We know what would win. What would win?
No,
Hands bore out of my eyes.
disagree.
A king line.
There's over like 100 though, right? So that'd take us a while.
Yeah.
We could just focus
to
on
90,
Mockingjay.
Yeah, we could either.
Are y'all
do it,
including
like, book
Ballad
by
in that?
book.
Oh my
Ooh, yeah,
gosh.
Ballad too. Oh no.
We
Y'all
could do
including
book by
Ballad
book.
on that one? Oh, that's gonna be a weak
No.
tier.
Oh my
We could
gosh.
do book by book, or we could just go.
We could
with,
make
like,
it a segment.
iconic ones.
We could just do
Mhm.
like,
Yeah,
10 a week or something.
True.
let's do that.
Okay.
All right,
Okay,
AJ.
it's your time.
Okay. I've waited my whole
Compose
life.
yourself.
Curly.
But like actually though, like I've felt this way for literally a decade, and I've never ever been in a position to have friends or a platform that I can fully go into.
Friends,
Yeah,
we
Um,
understand.
because I do have friends, but they don't care about the Hunger Games like this, and they certainly don't care about Anabaria. And most of them have only seen the movies and therefore don't even know who Anabaria is, even though she's in them. So before I get into the nitty gritty, I would just like to make this disclaimer. I'm very aware that it's very likely Suzanne did not put nearly this much thought into this. So I'm not saying that this is fact confirmed. I'm just saying think about it. Also, I'm not saying that Anabaria is necessarily like a good character or a bad character. I just think she's a lot more interesting than she's meant to be. And I do have textual, or what I will call textual evidence, to back my claims.
Yes.
And then I have some less, more like headcanon-y type stuff to tie it all together. So that's kind of like the two main parts that I'm operating on here. But basically what I'm here to tell you guys is that Inabaria is not the career victor you think she is. In my opinion, she is not pro-capital and might have never been. So
Ooh.
Wow.
Tell me
Okay.
more.
Okay.
What
That's
are your
me.
sources,
All
ma'am?
right.
Kidding.
Pause for effect. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, so when I first read the series, I really didn't pay her any attention until this chapter, until the voting, and until her only spoken line in the entire series. And I'm sure of that because the Hunger Games wiki literally only has this quote like mentioned for her in her character profile. So this is her only spoken line. So do I. Let them have a taste of their own medicine. And to me, this was so profound and it completely changed everything. Because up until this point, you know, I was buying into the whole, she has her like sharpened teeth. She's from District 2. She's all rah Hunger Games, you know. But this is weird to me because, first of all, there's a lot in this sentence. She's expressing the desire for revenge, which is already in, like, we'll get into that, but like, that's what she's doing, right? There are so many ways to phrase that. She could have said an eye for an eye. She could have said, I want them to feel what I feel, or whatever. Like, there's so many ways you can phrase that. But Suzanne chose let them have a taste of their own medicine. What's famous about Inabaria, folks? Her teeth, her mouth.
Wow.
That's an allusion to like her mouth. Which, you know, she has those teeth because she famously won with her mouth. She killed the last other tribute by ripping their throat out with her teeth. We'll get into that later also because that's wild. But so that I found was very interesting. But then the obvious thing that jumped out at me is this kind of desire for revenge, because as far as we know, right, in District 2, you're brainwashed into being a career. You're told, you know, the games are this like noble, honorable thing. It brings you honor to your district, to your family, to you. It's just kind of like what everyone in District 2 wants to be, right? So if that's the case, then she has to agree with why the games exist in the first place, which means that she would be pro-capital. So then why would she want the children of the capital to then go through a games, especially in this context? It's not like it wouldn't be like oh, I want them to feel the glory. The capital has lost. There's no glory for the capital here. And it's not just any capital children, it's the capital children of prominent capital officials, which is even more like, you know, the government, right? So if she were pro-government, this would be like, she would be appalled by this. I also want to note, right before the voting happens, Joanna acknowledges, you know, like, why is she even here? Because, you know, she's a career, like, why is she here? And then Coin explains, well, under the Mockingjay deal, you know, she's protected or whatever. And Inabaria smiles at Joanna, and Joanna's like, we'll still kill you or whatever. And it's kind of funny. It's kind of sassy, it's kind of funny. But then you get to the voting. Peeta's the first one to vote because he's the one that bursts out saying no. Joanna says, why not? Because she wants the capital to suffer. And then Inabaria follows that and actually agrees with Joanna, which is very interesting because a moment ago, they were ready to kill each other. But now they agree on wanting the capital to suffer. Yeah, wait, sorry, y'all. I have a page of notes. I'm just reading my own handwriting currently. Let's see. Right. She's also the only like non-rebel victor present, if that makes sense. I mean, actually, if we want to rewind, when District 2 was sort of conquered by District 13, she joined the rebellion. If we want to go even more so backwards in Catching Fire, yes, she volunteered for the Court of Quell, but she held hands with the other victors on stage. In the movie, she actually smiles while she holds the hands, whereas Kashmir and Claude don't do that.
What about Brutus?
I can't remember. I tried finding the clip for today, or like just trying to see it. I can't remember now, but in any case, she's smiling in the movie, and in the books it's not described. So like, is that canon? Is that not canon? Whatever. It's a movie detail, so it's kind of like up in the air. But I still think it's interesting. And then it's actually also mentioned in like the Hunger Games wiki, like when Snow is captured, and Abaria feels like she can fully join the rebels, like she's committed to that now, which I find interesting. And to me, and one could argue like, oh well, she's just trying to save her own skin, I guess, and is trying to, you know, stay with the winning side, whichever side that is. To me, it reads as she feels safe enough to do so. I like that she votes yes after Joanna, and that she's not the first one to say yes or whatever to cast her vote. She even says, because she doesn't even just say like, let them have a taste of their own medicine, I vote yes. She says, so do I. She agrees with Joanna before she says anything else. And to me, that just reminds me of like, yeah, someone being like, oh my God, you said what I was thinking, I'm gonna say this too. Like kind of this, like, I feel safe enough to say this now, so I'm gonna say it. Let's see. Just scrolling down here, sorry folks. Okay, so I kind of covered the main thing. There's a few more things I want to get into before I get into like the headcanon-y type stuff that I feel like would tie all this in. Oh yeah, so another thing that I think is pretty major, that is, we know from canon, we know that the Capitol has no problem making cosmetic surgical procedures on victors without their consent. We know this from the first book when Katniss, is, out of the games and she's wearing this dress that Cinna made for her and it's padded, right? And she kind of frowns. And Cinna makes this comment of like, be thankful it's just the dress or something along those lines. It's explained that, he had to kind of argue for her to not get a breast enhancement surgery with this unconscious 16-year-old girl, So we know that that's something the Capitol does, right? We don't know maybe who specifically, but we know it's a practice. And so that also kind of like came back to my mind because her most famous feature are her teeth, right? And what Katniss says is that, it's implied that she's the one who decided to have that happen. What do we also know is true? That the way that the victors carry themselves are not always who they actually are. Finnick is not actually this like uber charming, flirty sex symbol, right? But that's who he's forced to present himself as in order to navigate the Capitol and everything. So I feel like it's possible that would be true for Anabaria also. Now, why would this happen at all? Like, why even bother with all this? My thing is like, if she was brainwashed into being a career, when you read about something, when you're preparing about going into war or whatever, you can like learn about it all you want. It's going to be different when you experience it in real life. There's no shortcuts. You can't know what something is like until you experience it firsthand, right? And I feel like, being told, oh, it's this honor, it's this great thing, and then you're thrown into it, and then children are being murdered all around you. I feel like that would take a toll on you, even if you're not aware of it. I feel like we see that happen with, war vets. Not that it's the same thing, but, it's like, it's trauma. You can't deny that. And again, it's how she won that is so jarring to me. To rip someone's throat out with your teeth, you have to really want that, or like you have to be unhinged, like truly. It reminds me of like Florida Man article headlines where like bath salts are involved, you know? I don't feel like instinctively a human being goes for the throat rip, like with your teeth. Like, I just don't see that being a very common thing. I don't care how trained you are, you know, and whatever. We also know from previous games that, you know, mutts and plants and poisons and stuff exist. So like, could it have been a tracker jacker sting? Could it have been a poisonous gas? Could it have been anything that might have altered her state of mind? Could it have been sheer exhaustion and desperation? Like, there's so many things I feel like that could push someone to do that without them being in like a rational, healthy state of mind. And then it's like, well, how do you live with that? How do you live with the fact that you won by ripping someone's throat out? Like, that's just so insane. And it's unlike the other victors, because everyone else has either won by accident, like Annie, or won via a weapon or some kind of, you know, indirect conflict. Like Peeta and Katniss won because they were threatening the Capitol with no victor. Finnick won with his trident. Jonah had an axe, you know, Haymitch had the arena, like that sort of thing, you know. She just goes in for the chomp. That's crazy. That's insane. I know that physically it's possible. I know like a human jaw can chew through human fingers like baby carrots. But we don't do that. There's a mental block that makes it so that we don't do that
I
typically.
hate that fun fact.
I hate and I love it. But so, you know, it's like, I know it's possible, but like that mental block has to be lifted in some way. Another thing that I find interesting, and that I feel like supports that, you know, this wasn't exactly the most like ideal situation, is we know from the original series, but confirmed even more in Ballad, that the Capitol does not like cannibalism, right? Like, it reminds them of their own
Ooh.
depravity. They don't, and Katniss mentions at some point, I think, she's like, when they see that there's a tribute who's like headed that way, they find some other way to get rid of him because they don't want a cannibal victor, you know? But given that the only other person remaining was killed, if they were to kill a Nebaria, then there's no victor, which is worse, right? We know that the Capitol feels that that's worse. So they didn't know she was going to stop there. Like, she could have just kept going. You know what I mean? Like, that was that. So I find that that's kind of interesting. And then this is where we get into headcanon land. Okay, so bear with me on this journey. But okay, so if that's the case, right? How does the Capitol then regain control of the situation? By giving her teeth against her will, possibly when she might, you know, still be unconscious in the hovercraft, you know, when they bring the tributes back to the Capitol or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, we're gonna make you the warrior, like we're gonna make you a Capitol mutt, essentially, right? We're gonna make you the guard dog of the Capitol. Woo, District 2, like, you're so happy to be here, you're so ferocious, you're so tough, you know, here's some teeth. And I don't feel like the trafficking option would have been really viable, either because District 2 is more favored, so like maybe there's not as much of a need to like mentally torture them in that way. Or maybe she would have just been too scary for most Capitol people. Like, you know, oh, she ripped someone's throat out with her teeth. It's kind of intense, you know. Maybe it's not exactly the same type of clientele that's after Finnick and Cashmere and such. And then also, I think it's an interesting comment on the fact that, you know, sex and violence are kind of the driving hungers of the Capitol. They crave violence and they crave beauty. And, you know, well, you have someone like Finnick who could be, you know, the more like the sex appeal type way of doing things. And then Nebaria would be representing the more violent side of things. Yeah, so let me see here. I feel like there's so much I've forgotten. It's been 10 years that I've been sitting on this, you guys. But yeah, I feel like it's not out of the question that she could be in some sort of, oh, I guess this would be the last thing to say. We know, Snow controls Finnick with the trafficking. He controls Katniss with the romance with Peeta. Like there's a persona that they have to all stick to. And especially once like the Court of Quell happens and they all like, the country is on the brink of collapse and everything, and the whole convince me thing. Why couldn't Snow have other deals with other types of victors? Like, let's say the careers, like you guys have to be even more showy, even more pro-capital. And so like she volunteers for the Court of Quell, even though she might not necessarily want to. And that's a different type of pain. Think about it. Like if you were forced to look like you enjoyed the games, that's not what Katniss has been asked to do, right? She was asked to have her romance with Peeta be convincing, right? Of like the Capitol's generosity or whatever. But couldn't, the opposite side of that be true? And I feel like, she's District 2, she's Capital, or she's, well, no, she's not Capital, she's District. That's kind of my point, actually. She's District at the end of the day. She's still not Capital. She's still not going to be regarded as equal to a Capital citizen or anything like that. She's still under the control of the Capital, no matter what. It's just a different kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I'm probably like forgetting a bunch of stuff. I guess a little bit. There's this little nugget too. This is kind of a stretch, but I just thought it was interesting. Cato has kind of a change of heart, not a change of heart, but like a moment of realization at the end of the 74th games where he's kind of like, whoa, this is messed up, and then he gets killed. There's no like future for him after that, but he came from the same environment, if not more so as time has gone on, the same kind of culture. I think it's possible. I think it's interesting. This isn't so much like related to the theory, but just more so like an interesting thing, like that they're all wearing, when they're in the voting room, they're all wearing gray, the gray District 13 uniforms, which that in and of itself is interesting. But then it's the fact that they're gray. It's like the whole morally gray thing, like I'm not here saying that Anabaria is like a rebellion leader and that she's a hero, because she's not, but maybe she's not exactly like fully pro-capital either. There might be some other underlying things. Yeah, I don't really know how to end this in an elegant way. I'm not a public speaker, y'all.
That's
but
good. No, that's a lot.
was amazing.
That's a
Wow.
lot.
Woohoo! I'm clapping.
That was amazing.
Really proud.
Thank you.
Proud friend
Wow.
moment.
I'm so with you on the teeth not being an elective choice.
Mhm.
I think it makes so much sense.
It's
I feel like
also
I'm more like 50-50 on like the, I don't know, her alliance with like the Capitol or not, or
Sure.
and because it still kind of confuses me, her volunteering, like being in the Quarter Quell, and like I feel like you made some good points, but I'm also like not
No, that's fair.
sure, like because I feel like there's just not enough, but like I can so see the teeth like not
Yeah.
being something she was forced into.
It's also like a very impractical thing. I don't know how like familiar you guys are with body modification and that sort of world, but if you were to file all of your teeth, like the reason why human beings aren't shaped like that is because like we're not supposed to live like that. Like that's not supposed to be how our teeth fit in our mouth. And I feel like again, it's such a, there's so many themes of hunger and pain and like food things and whatever in this series that like it just cannot be comfortable. I don't care. I don't care how advanced the technology is. You would be accidentally slicing the inside of your mouth all the time. Like, that would be another great way of controlling somebody. Like you can't speak because you'll slice your mouth, and then her having only one spoken line in the entire series. And I know she's a minor character, but I feel like that's also something, yeah, I totally get that. I mean, the alliance on whether she's pro or not pro capital, whatever, is definitely up in the air. We definitely don't know enough about her games. We don't know enough about like what the District 2 Victor pool demographic is like. Like,
Right.
we don't know. Are there other women? Because like that could be a thing too. You know, it might be like Katniss, where she's the only woman, and then she
Yeah.
volunteers because it would look bad for her not to, because it's District 2. But we don't know. There's no like in that situation, like there's definitely no like evidence pointing in either direction. But I just feel like I can use it to argue my point.
For sure.
Back to the teeth, like you know how people go viral for one thing, and
Yep.
like the corn kid who's like known for corn now, and people for the rest of
It's
for the rest
corn.
of his life,
A big
people are gonna
puff
be like,
banana.
do the
It
corn
has the
thing,
juice.
and like she
It has a-
she would probably be like forced to continue to show her teeth or something like that
Mhm.
to keep like not morale, but like in the face
Yeah.
of the Capitol, to have her be known by, oh, she ripped out
Mhm.
Tribute's throat, just to continue the I don't know, whatever. But I feel like that kind of fits along with that too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Yeah, I just feel like so much about what we do know about victors in Panem is like they're still in the game. They're performing all the time. You know, there are no winners, only survivors, right? Like it's so
Mm.
true. And I feel like even if you're on like the nicer side of things, right? Like she didn't grow up in 12 starving to death and whatever. She definitely is on the privileged side of things, but it's still not a position you want to be in. Like even being a victor is like, it's still not a position you want to be in, because then it means you had to go through games, you had to watch a bunch of people be killed, other people try to kill you. You know, like no one wants that either. So I feel
Mhm.
like there's a cost there, no matter how prepared you think you are or how excited, quote unquote, you might be for it. Like those are still teenagers that they're sending in, even if they're 18 in District 2. Those are still like young ass kids.
Mhm.
There's no good in that situation.
Yeah, they're victims too.
Mhm.
And it makes so much sense that it could be even harder for the career districts, because afterwards, like we see with Cato, like that might happen pretty often
Mhm.
with them, and they can't have like for the sake of the system, like continuing how it is, they can't have a career victor that's not, you know, a warrior like you were talking about.
That's that's right. Yeah. The thought of, like, I see a lot of similarities between like Cato's character and Enerbaria, and I really think like if Cato, like similar to how Katniss and Haymitch are connected, in that you could say Haymitch, it could have been Katniss in the future. I would say Enerbaria could have been, or yeah, wait, Cato could have been
Mhm.
Enerbaria in the future. Yeah. So like I definitely see like those character ties, and that and like the system continues to produce these same results. And so I really I'm like all on board. You sold me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Join the Inabaria cult.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever you're selling, I'm buying.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. This is one of those things where, like, you know, if I had the chance to talk to Suzanne Collins, I mean, we all talk about this. There's so many things we would ask her and talk to her about. There's so many different things that I would ask and talk to her about, but I would love to like present all this information to her and be like, what do you think? And then
And
either she'll
she
be
would
like,
love that conversation too. You know,
I feel
that's
like she'd
like
either be
something
like,
that she would be like, oh wow, that's so interesting. Like even if she hasn't thought about it, you know, well,
yeah,
she has to have thought about it. I mean, she has
Like
feel like
to.
finally someone got it.
right. She'll either be like, you cracked the code, you know,
Right.
like you're getting an Inabaria book now, you know, or like, or she'd be like, I literally just never thought about it. Congratulations, you just wrote a book for me, you know, like.
But I think she'd really appreciate that like line of thinking, like no matter what.
Well, shucks, I'll take that. But
Yes.
you know, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, That was amazing, especially
It
like
was.
you're able to dissect it from one line and this
Yes.
conversation, but then you looked back and saw her behavior and how like she was framed, or like like how the Capitol showed her off in that way.
Mhm.
And but then like grasping other themes from how the Capitol showed off Katniss and how that was incorrect. Like, oh my goodness, this is
Amazing.
great. Yeah, amazing.
I just, it was so jarring to me because I expected her. I'm like, okay, they're gonna vote, and Abaria is the only one there that's like a career, and we all have our preconceived ideas as to what that means. And then she says something that expresses wanting revenge, and that just like did not match up with how I pictured her, I guess, or like how I understood her. So then I was like, wait a minute, like we're going all the way back, because like, did I miss something,
Mhm.
And again, it just adds to the whole fact that I didn't understand Mockingjay at all when it came out, or when I first read it. But it just made me question her a little bit more. And I feel like if there's any takeaway from this soapbox that I'm on, is that like even minor characters, I feel like, have something to add to the story, even if that's not necessarily how it's meant to be or intended,
Mm.
But I'm very fascinated with the concept of morally gray, like moral grayness or whatever. And that the districts sort of represent, like, and the Capitol sort of represent like a spectrum of that, right? Like you have like on one end, you have like District 12 that is super impoverished, and these people are clearly like just waiting for a rebellion to happen because they have nothing left to lose. And then you have people that are in districts 1 and 2 and who are maybe more, their quality of life is better, despite still being district. But then like what kind of culture does that breed, and how many different types of people can you have under the same kind of oppression, or not same kind of oppression, rather, I should say. I don't include 4 in this, even though I know 4 is technically a career district in the books. We've talked about this before, but I feel like 4 is
It's not really though.
it's like a career district circumstantially, but not
Yeah.
intentionally. So there's that. And I feel like, Finnick and Annie and Mags, like when you actually interact with the characters from that district, nothing about them feels career at all. Like, the fact that Mags is a little old lady, Annie has some mental health situations going on there. So does Finnick, but like she seems to be nonverbal or very limitedly verbal. She's not what you think of when you think of like a career, and Finnick might be, but then that illusion quickly falls away once you actually know what he's got going on. Yeah.
I like your point about the minor characters, because that would track with how Suzanne writes Tigress and how she's even used in Ballad. Like in Mockingjay, it's like, where did this character come from? This is very random, similar to in Abaria. Like it confused me, like both of those characters confused me as to like what purpose were they serving, for the story, for the plot. And we see in Ballad, Tigress served something else. And through, your whole lecture that you just gave, we see how where in Abaria like fits in this puzzle. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Gabby. Yeah. Thanks.
The fact that there's more to an Obaria, like at the end of the book, than Effie just wildly appearing at the end and serving no
Yeah.
purpose.
We also don't know what happens to Anabaria after. This is like the last time we see her, and I checked, there's no mention of her after at all in the rest of the book. It's kind of presumed that she just returns back to 2 and just kind of lives out her life there. It's also interesting to think about she was captured in the Court of Quell with Peeta and Joanna, and likely because of her being from District 2, she probably was either released or was not treated as poorly. Actually, there is something I kind of forgot. It's not important really, but I'm just gonna include it since we're here. When Katniss comes into the room, this is on page 367, and she's like, Peeta, Joanna, Beetee, Haymitch, Annie, and Enobaria, they all wear the gray rebel uniforms from 13. No one looks particularly well, which I also think is interesting. And it could be interpreted in a few ways. It could mean like the circumstances are just shitty for everyone. No one is excited to be there, right? It could be like, Enobaria could be bummed because they're like, we gotta send the capital children in, and she's like, no. Or it could mean also that, you know, she maybe wasn't treated as kindly as people think. Maybe not nearly as bad as Peeta and Joanna were, but maybe she wasn't like given the gold star treatment either. She still held hands on that stage with those other victors.
I feel like that would have to be the case if like all of this theory is true, because if she had to be coerced kind of to volunteer to participate in the Quarter Quell, then the Capitol would know that she's not, you know,
right,
all for the Capitol. So then it wouldn't make sense for them to treat her like maybe she was just held somewhere else or something.
Yeah, she could have been held separately. Beetee explains that, you know, the Capitol killed the victors that were associated with the rebel cause, and then the rebels killed the victors that were connected to the Capitol and stuff. But Enobaria is there. She's kind of, you know, and then they say like she's alive because of the Mockingjay deal. But even before that happened, like how did she get spared in all of this? And like the wiki mentions that, you know, she kind of joins in once 2 gets taken. And I feel like if you were a true District 2 career, like you would fight until the end. Like you would die before you would join the rebel cause, you know, because that's like in your culture, right? Full like warrior mentality. And she doesn't do that, you know. She's just like, all right, you guys are here, guess this is what I'm doing. And then Snow gets captured and she's like, finally, now I can breathe. Now I can just freaking live my life and then just exist. And maybe that makes Joanna mad, but you know, that's about it. In the end, they agree, which is also interesting.
I would love for you to be able to have this chat with Suzanne.
Oh my gosh,
let's make well,
make
then,
it
like,
happen.
You know, I started working on my original character Ren and everything, and I was like, I just love Enobaria so much based on my little like research. I'm just gonna write her in there, and so sometimes I had to like in preparation for today, I had to like separate out like what's actually in the book and related to the book only, and like what have I just added on to her. But that's definitely like where I got all this from. It's just like there's more to her than meets the eye. I don't know what it is. I don't think she's a hero, but I don't think she's a villain either.
She's morally gray.
She's morally gray, and you know, again, it's always that quote from American Hustle that I love so much. The world is not black and white; it's extremely gray, and I feel like that's the perfect way to describe that. That's all, folks.
Woohoo!
That was amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
Great
Yes.
job. So proud of you.
Thank you. This will probably be the only presentation that I feel prepared for and don't feel nervous about. I enjoy looking forward to feeling anxious about public speaking again. This was a fun little retreat. But no, seriously, thank you for letting me get on my little soapbox and preach my Enobaria gospel.
It was good.
Yes.
I have not read into this much for the other characters, so who knows, maybe that's my next project. Cashmere and Gloss, secretly spies for the rebellion. No, I'm kidding. I do like to headcanon that Brutus was Enobaria's mentor. Something about that makes me happy. So there's no
Aw.
evidence of that, but I just like the idea of it. It'd be like a Katniss and Haymitch. but just career. Hey.
Who
I'm
ordered
just
this big?
picturing
egg?
Haymitch in the arena now, and like
Ah.
how that would have gone.
It would have been interesting to see. I would have hated it, but it makes me curious about it for sure.
Well, we've only got one chapter and an epilogue left.
Dun, dun, dun.
Then we'll be
Aw.
done with Mockingjay.
Forever. Okay.
Never to be read again.
Exactly.
I probably
Back
won't
on the
read it
shelf.
again for a while. In another
that
10
away.
years or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Then we'll read Ballad next. Yay.
Ooh.
Woo.
Yay. And yeah, I guess that's it for tonight, unless anyone has anything else. Thank you so much for your presentation, AJ. It was amazing.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Yeah, and if that's it, I guess we will see you all next week.